Today we're going to talk about the desexualization of the Italian diva Silvana Mangano, and essentially how throughout the comparison of her breakout role to her roles in later films like The Witches, Silvana Mangano is an example of the desexualization of the aging Italian film star.
Born in 1930, Silvana Mangano was trained as a dancer throughout her youth before transitioning to a career as a model. At age 16, she entered and won the Miss Rome beauty pageant, and 1 year later, she entered into the Miss Italia contest, competing against many other future stars like Gina Lollobrigida and Sophia Loren. This contest boosted her profile in the eyes of film producers and directors and led to her first film role. Just 2 years after this pageant, Mangano was starring in Giuseppe De Santis' film Bitter Rice. Much attention is given to Mangano's family background, and she was coveted for her unique looks that it spawned, often attributed to her English mother. Throughout her career, many references were made by her contemporaries to her pedigree, with director Luchino Visconti claiming that, quote, as in breeding racehorses, the cross between a Sicilian father and an English mother has produced a rare thoroughbred. Much of the casting of Mangano's role in Bitter Rice focused on her physical attributes, and that is reflected in how she is dressed and shot. DeSantis is quoted as saying that they were looking for an Italian Rita Hayworth for the role of Silvana. Mangano is pigeonholed into this role of a voluptuous Italian woman, a sentiment that is echoed in a 1956 episode of the popular show What's My Line, when one of the participants asks, after he discovers she is Italian, quote, are you famous for your various measurements? This simplification of her performance to her physical appearance rubbed Mangano the wrong way, and for the rest of her life, she forbade any images associated with the film to be displayed in her home.
Much like she was persuaded into pursuing an acting career, Mangano was also persuaded into marrying Bitter Rice producer Dino De Laurentiis in a civil ceremony on July 17, 1949. This union was the beginning of her image metamorphosis from curvaceous blue-collared worker to sophisticated socialite. This change was a mission of not just her husband, but Mangano herself, who reportedly despised the atomic bomb image of herself that got her her fame. Some of these changes were done merely by adding heavier eye makeup, all the way to corset training and having extremely strict diets. In an article titled Glamour and the Italian Female Film Stars of the 1950s, Rika Buckley states, Mangano's look altered from the robust beauty denoting characteristics associated with her working-class origins to a slender, aristocratic-looking member of the international set who appeared to belong to another class, and more besides, another world. In Paola Bonifaccio's The Photo Romance, a feminist reading of popular culture, this metamorphosis of class change is very well noted as De Laurentiis' practice of exploiting publicity to match on- and off-screen images of the star Mangano. This was a common practice that led to the grooming of potential readers of photo romances that saw these women as representations of how to be beautiful, fashionable, and efficient inside but also outside of the home, and therefore use that as a way to advertise certain things to middle-class and upper-class women. As stated before, this metamorphosis was not just her husband's doing, it was also something that Mangano wanted to go through. This was not just because of the atomic bomb image that she was trying to separate herself from, but Mangano's personal view of herself unfortunately echoed the negative ideas that the public had perceived her as. In a 1970s Vogue issue, she states, I don't like myself. If a stage wig is beautiful, I see it ugly on my face. If a costume is beautiful, I see it ugly on my figure. As an actress, I improvised. I've never studied acting. I've always felt the fear of being inadequate. This brings us to the media scrutiny and reclusiveness of Silvana Mangano. As stated before, Mangano had stumbled onto the acting scene and had self-reportedly never been interested in the limelight or in acting much herself. And when offered a long-term contract after her hit Bitter Rice performance, Mangano turned it down, only later accepting it due to her father's persistence. Bonifacio states, while to national and foreign audiences she was Patomica, the atom bomb, Mangano speaks about herself with irony and candor, revealing her modest origins and her desire to work hard, her dream to marry, her fondness for a dog on the set, and her love and respect for both her father and husband. Just before that, in the reading, Bonifacio also states that both directors and critics, including female journalists, argued that Italian female stars like Mangano were harmful to Italian cinema and to themselves, quoting, "It's sad to admit, but the Italian film industry today exalts above all legs and prosperous bosoms." So a lot of this change in her image can also be attributed to the fact that she was under heavy media scrutiny for not being a true actress, more so just being a pair of legs or a pretty face to look at. In the same 1970s Vogue interview mentioned previously, the interviewer brings up common public scrutiny that Mangano had to face in the beginning years of her stardom. Quote, "Other people have said of you also, she has no talent. She only knows how to show her buttocks." Throughout many interviews and her frequent choices to turn down roles, it was made clear that Mangano was more comfortable being at home with her children as a mother and homemaker rather than the diva the public insisted on labeling her as. And she spent many of her years deconstructing that image alongside her husband. It was clear from the start of Mangano's acting career that she was not interested in being in the limelight or being in Hollywood, let alone being the atomic bomb or Italian diva that she was being labeled as, not only by the public, but also by film critics and even typecasting directors and producers. And it was clear that she was working very hard to deconstruct the image that she had come in with in her film Bitter Rice in 1949. And as we can see throughout the years, she used this sculpting and metamorphosis that her and her husband were working on in order to become a quote-unquote more serious actress. Which brings us to the reflection of this career and her life as Gloria in the 1967 film The Witches.
The second half of the 60s gave new life to Mangano's range. As her marriage to De Laurentiis dissolved, so did their business relationship. Working independently from De Laurentiis gave Mangano the opportunity to explore less commercial roles, and by the end of the 60s she had worked with some of Italy's most respected filmmakers. Starring in films directed by Luchino Visconti, Vittorio De Sica, and Pier Paolo Pasolini led to her finally gaining the artistic respect she had so longed for since Bitter Rice and before. These are considered among the strongest performances in her career, with the episodic film The Witches, or Le Streghe in Italian, kicking things off. Playing 5 separate characters in 5 separate episodes, The Witches is a brilliant display of Mangano's versatility and skill. We've chosen to focus on the first segment of the film, entitled The Witch Burned Alive, since the themes relate to Mangano's personal history at the time. Directed by Luchino Visconti, the episode is centered around an aging star struggling with how to balance her desire to be a mother in the face of fame. Mangano famously said in an interview, "I have a vocation for motherhood, not for being a star." In a 1972 Vogue feature entitled Secret Star, Silvana Mangano opened up about her struggles with stardom, many of which were reflected in her role in The Witches. The article opens with the subheading, "Italy's one-time film sex queen, Silvana Mangano, shed curves and sensuality to uncover an aloof beauty and to live with her family, secluded, faithful to herself." The Vogue feature is just one example of the tragic truth behind her roles at this time. In The Witch Burned Alive, Mangano's character Gloria appears cold, distant, and incognito when the paparazzi is around. However, the mystery surrounding her is just a mask for her own personal issues. In a pivotal moment in the film, Gloria faints, causing the worried party guests to remove her wig, revealing lift tape around her eyes. It's a poignant portrayal of fading beauty, as Gloria feels she needs this to be attractive. At the end of the episode, as her celebrity appearance is reconstructed, it is hard to tell if we are watching Gloria or Silvana herself. The notion of wanting to start a family was heavily mirrored in Mangano's own history. Her decision to slow down her acting career was directly based on her desire to spend more time with her family. It should also be noted that Gloria's husband in the film is also her agent and manager, similar to De Laurentiis and Mangano before their split. Her star persona, I argue, fosters her husband's aspirations as media mogul, writes Dr. Bonifacio. The same could be said for Gloria.